Welcome back, everybody. We're really excited for the 2025 NABQT recap episode. Really excited to have Brother Ryland Faubert joining us today. It's been a long time coming. We needed to have you on quite a long time ago, Ryland. You're a good buddy of mine. We've been friends since you were a quizzer, and now you're a few years removed from that and coaching. And we can talk more about how you did this year coaching once we get into things. But Chad, you're here too. Nice to have you.
It almost sounds like you mean that. So.
Really excited to have both of you. Looking forward to the conversation. We just closed off a fantastic quizzing season. The 2025 quiz season will be one that I will always cherish. I really enjoyed coaching this year. I really enjoyed writing on the Gospels this year. Just nothing to complain about. Just a great year. There's one judge in session C that really got on my nerves, but other than that, it was great. It was Chad, by the way. Okay, so first of all, let's start off. I want to introduce Ryland. Ryland, you are the son of the National Bible Quizzing Director, Brother Russell Faubert. Russell, I never say Russell. I'm sorry, Brother Russ. Big Russ, as he was called in nationals a couple of times, which is weird. I don't call him that. But you're the son of the national quiz master. He was highly involved at high levels in Bible quizzing since you were born. So what was that like, being born into that family and then going through Bible quizzing and to get to where you are now?
Well, I didn't have a choice. That's I guess the first thing I can say. No, I from before I began as a beginner quizzer, I was very much well aware of quizzing. I mean, our original church that we were at in Troy, Michigan, they already had a quiz program there that my mom was coaching, and so I was surrounded by experienced quizzers, intermediate quizzers, going to quiz practices at a very young age, and so I definitely just had a desire to do it for myself. Be entering into my junior years of quizzing, and that sort of just persisted throughout my adolescent years. As I got older, I was a interesting person in the sense that I wasn't really one of those quizzers that was a go-getter. I was much more like, Mom, you do it for me. She wrote my charts every single year, did all of this stuff, which Chad may not like that, hearing that at all. But she did that is from when I was a junior quizzer up until my last year in experienced, and I still did not ever do any of them. Yeah, we from juniors through experience, which I started as soon as I turned 12. I did not quiz intermediates at all. Quizzed from 2014 to 2020, 7 years of experience quizzing for the Florida district, which probably most people would know me for, within the Palm Bay team and the Gainesville team, respectively, while also quizzing my first year in Troy under Pastor Marvin Walker's church. And then 1 year, odd year, I guess you could call it, in Newark, Delaware in 2019. Upon my final year of quizzing, I took a bit of a hiatus with college. I still attended NABQT and Bayou Blast and stuff like that because I very much love those events. But I definitely, I would say, lost the quizzing itch, if you will. Was a bit tuckered out after so many years. But I was presented with an opportunity at the end of last year to coach our experienced team in Hazelwood, Missouri. And I sort of was like, okay, sure, I'll give it a chance. And very quickly, I rekindled the fire of Bible quizzing that I had when I was a teenager. And so, as you just said, we just finished NABQT 2025, and that concluded my first year as a coach, and it's been awesome. No complaints whatsoever.
I gotta say, I was very proud of you this year. You really, from the outside looking in, you did a great job with the team that you had. You really pushed them. They did great at nationals this year. They did great all year. Emma was, I think you really helped her reach another level this year, from what I could see. And I was really hoping that you get up there for Coach of the Year, and you did. Congratulations for that. Well deserved. Well, how rewarding is quizzing compared to coaching? Now that you've kind of experienced both sides of that, is coaching a lot different than you expected?
I would certainly say so. In my personal experience, it's been night and day. And I don't really know, just because it's still pretty new to me, what I would attribute that to. Maybe it's because when I was a quizzer, I was very nonchalant in my attitude or in my studying and stuff like that. Whereas now as a coach, I'm very much like on the dot with as many things as I can be. But even from just a purely emotional investment point of view, I mean, I've never felt more. And we had a conversation after or later on in the tournament this past week of it's this feeling that it's not really like they're your kids. It's not really like they're just sort of your brothers and sisters. Like it's a unique relationship that I definitely wasn't expecting, but it's something that it's so strong for me that I know that now I can't imagine myself leaving for the foreseeable future. And that's definitely not something, if you asked me at the beginning of this year, I probably would have been like, we'll see if I'll coach next year. This might just be a one and done thing, if I'm being honest. But now it's entirely due to my quizzers. This has been something that I'm committed to for hopefully a very long time.
When you have quizzers that are committed and want to do their best, I don't know, that makes me personally just strive to. I don't want to be the one that limits them, right? Like, I'm going to do everything I can because you're doing everything you can. I'm not going to be the weakest link here, and seeing them grow, seeing the light bulbs come on, seeing them, break barriers that they've been coming up against. It is so rewarding. And so many coaches that are hopefully listening to this know exactly what we're talking about. But it's really cool that you experienced that and you get it. It's there's nothing like it. You're exactly right. You nailed it on the head. That relationship that you develop, especially with older kids, especially in the experienced division, is different because they're becoming adults, and you become really close friends. Because when they're little, when they're in juniors, intermediate, you can't really be friends. You're not really peers. But all of the kids that I've coached all the way through went from like kids to peers and like friends, and that's it's really special. I mean, Avery and Sherwin, I cherish those relationships forever. Sharon aged out last year. We became really good friends. And she was always kind of shy, and I didn't really know what to expect going into that year. But when you're both working really hard to achieve the same goal, and you're helping, and as a coach, just doing everything you can to help, you really do become so close. I'm really glad you get to do it, especially with your two little brothers.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, Rylan. You dealt with a couple of really unique scenarios. One of them being coaching your siblings, which is not unheard of, but it's certainly one of the rarer combinations that you have to deal with. So I'm sure that had some challenges all on its own. And then, of course, having to deal with being a combination team, you guys in Lebanon, that always brings a different element to things that, is not necessarily better or worse than having all of the quizzers from the same church, but certainly brings a separate set of challenges with it.
Yeah, there were definitely, I mean, as with every team, I'm sure, a lot of ups and downs. And having my brothers as my quizzers probably only made that a little bit worse at times. But, thank God for Emma, because I really do think that she sort of balanced out the team. I mean, I said from week 1, I was like, Emma, you're going to be red too, even if you're the strongest quizzer, because my brothers cannot sit next to each other. They cannot. They're going to get on each other's nerves. They'll do one thing, like you got to be in the middle because you're going to be the mediator. And I really do think that her presence, along with just my brother's own maturity throughout the season, really blossomed our dynamic into something that would bring success come nationals, which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, I agree on the who sits in the middle. That's a real thing. You need somebody. Sometimes you need a rose between the thorns. That's what I call it. And you had one of those. So good job, sir.
And Asher is a very prickly thorn.
I was wondering how long we'd get into this before mentioning Asher. All
Mhm.
right, good job, Asher. You made it through. All right, so let's talk about nationals. We just it's still kind of fresh. We just got back a few days ago from NAYC. I didn't get to go, but you were there, Ryland, right? You got to enjoy NAYC, which back to back those 2 weeks are crazy. But let's talk about nationals. We were in Louisville, Kentucky. We were at the Galt House. What did you guys think of the location? Historically we've been there some. What did you guys think of the setup, the flow of the tournament? What did you guys think?
I personally love the Galt House, love Louisville. I thought that the setup of it was from my perspective very nice. I kind of liked the experience in the intermediate. There were in the 2 separate towers, and then there's the 24-hour skywalk that connects the two. And so I thought that added a level of just simplicity to, okay, this is where I need to be, this is where I shouldn't be. So you sort of avoided, because obviously we're under the same the same questions for across both divisions. And so I feel like not that would have happened if that wasn't the case, but nonetheless, it makes it a bit just easier for people not to get confused about anything. So I did enjoy that. The location itself was fantastic. I remember as a little kid in 2013, the last time we were in the Galt House, how much fun I had just running around. They have a lot of good space. The hotel staff doesn't get on the kids too much. And as I said, the 24-hour skywalk allows for good fellowship to take place. So I personally loved the location, thought everything ran smoothly as someone who was also working for youth ministries, setting up and tearing down. So I was rather pleased.
I agree. I did enjoy the skywalk a lot. It was really far from experience to intermediate. That was a slight con, but it wasn't too big of a deal because most people kind of stick to a division as a coach or as a quizzer. Tracking an 11-year-old in the Galt House was kind of terrifying. My 11-year-old, just trying to know where she is, where she's going, and who she's with, because there were other events going on at the same time. So that was a slight con. Overall, it was beautiful. I really did enjoy it a lot. The restaurants being right there were really nice, and some stuff within walking distance. Really enjoyed Louisville as a whole. Another thing that we that was revealed at nationals was some work by your sister, Ryland. The new shirts, the name of the year next year, Ready Always. What's that called? The title. What's it called? The theme. There we go. Thank you, Chad. The theme for next year, Ready Always. We're doing Doctrine next year. The shirts are awesome. I thought having 2 different shirts was a great idea because people are going to double up because they're both great. Taylor does a great job with the photos and the reels and the social media. Shout out to her and her team. They did a great job. That was awesome. Let's see what else happened that was great. Oh yeah, there was some quizzing that happened. What did you guys think of the quizzing at nationals?
I thought this year was an interesting year. It felt like there were a lot of surprises to me going both ways. Just a lot of teams that maybe you wouldn't have predicted to end up near the top that got there, and several teams that you would have thought would be up there that didn't make it. And I know that to some extent that's the case every single year. There are always teams that fall a little short, and always teams that sort of hit the peak of what their success is going to be. But it just felt like that was a little bit more the case. I don't want to use the word random. I don't think random is the right word, but it did seem like it was a little more maybe mixed this year than I would have expected, just kind of as an overview. Now, obviously, we saw a lot of good quizzing, a lot of interesting things that I know we'll be delving into in a little more detail here in just a few minutes. But just sort of as an overview, that was sort of how I felt that the year was a little more surprising than I thought it would be.
Definitely some teams that quizzed well. They quizzed past expectations, and I felt like my team was one of them. I feel like all year we had a lot of potential young team. Really proud of the kids that I coach, Isaiah, Josiah, and Avery. They really stepped up. Our best two tournaments this year were BQE and Nationals, which is what it's supposed to be. So, that was awesome. They were very resilient. They really worked hard this summer. Very proud of them. There were some other great teams that quizzed really well past expectations from the year results. I would say is North Texas 3 and Florida 3. They quizzed great. Congratulations to them. And third and fourth, that is something that a lot of teams would love to have. And then there was no surprise with the top two teams. I think no one was surprised that they were at the top. So Independence, Missouri, and Gainesville, Florida, probably the best championship quiz I've ever seen as far as like just skill, entertainment value, top-notch quizzing. I was on the edge of my seat we were sitting with Travis Augustin and Brother Strawn and Isaiah, my quizzer, and it was just highly entertaining the entire time. Brother Strawn his commentary was great. I'm going to try again next year. I enjoyed it a lot. What did you guys think of the championship?
Do we have to go here already? This is supposed to be the culmination here.
No, I want to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, got to be one of the most epic finals quizzes of all time. I mean, you had a little bit of everything. First of all, the quiz was pretty clean throughout. I mean, I think you ended up with 4 or 5 errors, but I mean, overall, that's a pretty clean quiz, especially for a finals quiz where you know that the nerves are going to be running higher than normal. I
And
mean,
where
you
they were
got,
hitting. I mean, they were
yeah,
they
yeah,
were hitting.
good hit points. I mean, high quality quizzing. You got overtime. You got a distraction foul that wiped out a question. You got
We got to talk
another
more about that.
reread that had to be replaced. It comes down to you get overtime, and it comes down to question 23. Riley hits question 23 and quizzes out on the last question of her quiz career to win the tournament. Lane's got 7 correct. There's 385 total points. He's got 7, she's got 8. I mean, it was just a great battle, a great quiz, and like you said, no shortage of entertainment there. And so, like, I'm at the judges table and I have no clue what the score is. You can sort of tell by the flow of the game whether somebody's running away with it or not. And that one, it felt like it had been kind of back and forth, like it sort of went in 3 or 4 question runs. It felt like back and forth. And so we get to question 18, and you can tell when there's a timeout or when there's a stoppage in play. And like, you can tell by the buzz of the audience sort of how invested everybody is when you're at that stage. And so, like, I think Riley hit question 19 and got it. And the audience, like, there's sort of this like audible reaction from the audience. I was like, oh, did she just ice it right there? And then one team or the other called a timeout. And you could tell coming back to the board that everyone was sort of like still, intense. And I leaned over I was sitting beside Tim, of course, and I leaned over him. I said, we may have a tie game scenario right here. I kind of picked it out then because you could just sort of tell combined from the reaction on 19 to everyone still kind of being in it on 20. I said, we may have a possible tie game here. And sure enough, they hit 20, get it. And then he looks over at Sister Faubert and then I said, man, this is going to go down in the all-time annals for finals quizzes.
And I believe it was the only overtime game of the tournament that
I
we're aware
haven't
of.
found another one, but I have not looked at every single quiz even.
I believe it would have had to been in B session, and I didn't hear about any of them. I didn't go comb through them. If we're wrong, I'm sorry, but If that was the only overtime quiz of the tournament, that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Well, we got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that was the crazy drama in overtime. So Eric is he's big part of this podcast. Everyone that watches this should know Eric. So Eric, first of all, Eric had the time of his life this whole week. He got to judge an A session experience. He said that he just had the time of his life. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Just getting to judge with Brother Faubert and Sister Shayla, who's our Illinois coordinator. Just great. Just absolutely in love. Head over heels. And then he is the foul judge for general session. So he was the foul judge for the championship game. So let me kind of lay out a little bit of what happened here. So Lane Foster is the last year quizzer that is quizzing for Missouri. And I've known Lane for a long time. He's a good buddy. He's always had this habit, and I've always loved it because I think it just shows his intensity and his work ethic and his practice. And anytime that he was in a quiz and he wasn't actually hitting, like after a quiz is locked, for instance, he would still lock in and time his hit on the Quizmaster. And when he did that, he kind of jumped a little. You could kind of see where he would have hit if he was hitting. And most of the time, it's after the quiz is locked or whatnot, whether he won or lost. And, it's not causing any issues at all. He's just practicing, which, hey, great work ethic. I think it's really cool. I think you're using every opportunity to practice your timing on a Quizmaster. I've known Lane. He's done this for years. So we get down to overtime. Lane has 7 correct. And I'm watching edit. I was sitting on the second row on the far left. So I have a very diagonal view of the quiz board. I can see all the quizzers, but I'm definitely got quite the angle. So on question 21, Lane leans out pretty far. I feel like he was farther than normal. And the question's read, and it's like, according to Luke chapter 4, verses 49 or whatever. I don't know. I'm making it up. And he jumps as the reference is being read. He jumps like this and he sits back. And from my angle, it was a big jump. And if I didn't know Lane, but I knew Bible quizzing, watching that from where I was, I would have said he just tried to get Gainesville to jump early on this question. Knowing what I know, knowing it's Lane, I know that his coach said, you have 7 right. You're not hitting 21 in case they give us a reread, and then you can get 22 or 23. He wasn't hitting, but he was still locked in and practicing his hit spot. Unfortunately, it didn't look great. Fortunately, Gainesville did admit after the fact that it did not cost them to hit early. So that's good. They're like, no, we didn't even see him. So it didn't cause any issue. He wasn't doing anything on purpose. But our friend Eric was put in a situation where he had to maybe be a villain here, and really swing a quiz in a way. So I think that Eric did do the right thing. It is against the rules to make any sudden movements at the quiz board for that purpose of you can't jump and try to get a reaction from the other team. Because a lot of times when you feel the other team jump or you hear the other team hit, you just reactively hit your buzzer. Anyone that's quiz knows that. Am I right about that, guys? Yeah? Okay. So it's in the rules. You got to call it in that situation. Of course, we all like to joke and say that Eric just likes to make everything about himself, and be the star of the show, which is not true, but it's funny. It's fun to make fun of him. But he had to go down and make the call. So what was that like, Chad? You were sitting at the table. What was that like when Eric brings down the foul? Was it shocking?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you're not expecting anything like that to happen in what is already a tense quiz, an intense quiz, you're just not expecting that. And, when the foul judge comes down, everyone in the room is kind of wondering what's going on here. And I mean, I said from the beginning, I said it was absolutely the right call, and it's a gutsy call to make in that moment, especially like as a first year foul judge, I think, and as someone who, I mean, he's friends with Lane. We're in the finals quiz. Like, all things considered, and I said that several times. I said that takes some guts to make that call, because I mean, once you do that, there's nowhere to hide. Like, everyone knows what happened. They know who called the foul. They know who initiated this conversation that we're about to have, and then make a decision out of it. And so, like, I admire him for doing the right thing in that moment. And obviously we were surprised, but after that's his job, that's his call. And after he said that, there really was not, we, of course, in that moment, just to make sure, we double checked the rules manual, but there was, not a doubt about what we had to do. And you got the exact same result on the replacement. So I would say no harm, no foul, but there was a foul. So there's no long-term harm there, I guess.
Well, initially I was sitting there like, oh man, 5 points, but it's okay. Like, they got the reread. It kind of worked out for them. 5 points doesn't matter. And then I got to thinking about it more, and I was like, oh wait, they're gonna have to replace the whole thing. It didn't hit me initially that they were gonna have to replace the whole question, but it makes perfect sense, because you don't know whether or not him jumping caused any issues with Gainesville. They admitted that it didn't, which is why I'm really glad that it kind of worked out the way it did, because Riley didn't win the quiz because of the foul. Right. Riley went out there and got question 22 and question 23 to win the quiz. The foul did not tip the game either way. That's what everyone wants to see, right? We wanted to see we didn't want to see controversial ending. So with the replacement happening, a replay, basically. Same thing. Riley interrupts a little early, misses 21, reread to Zach. Yeah, once that happened, I just felt like weight kind of came off. It's like, okay, like we're like, I wasn't really pulling for either team. I love both teams. All the quizzers on both teams, just absolutely fantastic year. Great quizzers. Really happy for both of them. I just wanted to see a great quiz, and that's exactly what we got.
I will say, from an audience perspective, there was a rather large group of us that were, and you sort of alluded to it also, we were unsure as to who we assumed the foul, obviously, with Eric having gone down to the judges table, but we were unsure as to which team it was actually on. Because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Walker had contested when Gainesville did not have any contest to give.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were at first like, oh, okay, it's just a foul on Gainesville because they, improper contesting procedure or whatever the term for their foul was. But then it started going on because I believe the deliberation lasted for a healthy 5 minutes or so, somewhere in that ballpark. You guys were discussing it for some time. And so it definitely added to what already was sort of a movie quiz. Great quizzing, going down to the wire overtime. It just sort of added that extra climax that really, as you guys said, I'll echo the same thing. The best finals that I've ever personally watched, even though I would maybe be biased to ones that I was a part of. But
Travis Augustin dubbed it the Louisville Classic, the greatest show on stage, which I thought was good. We got to make that stick. All right.
So I just want to get this straight, because then we also had an issue on the replacement. Was the contest by Gainesville, was it on the original question or was it on the replacement question?
The replacement question. No, I believe it was on the replacement, which then they replaced the reread.
yeah.
Yes, that was a whole nother thing of drama.
yeah, so there was like this whole second act, which is, of course, not nearly as memorable or as impactful. But we had this whole second act to the question, which was so on the replacement, like we said, same scenario played out. Gainesville hits it, interrupts, misses, rereads it to Missouri. They hit. Um, he gives the answer, and Brother Faubert rules pretty quickly. It was pretty close to what was on the paper. He rules pretty quickly correct. And Gainesville contests, if I remember correctly. But during the course of that, and as you mentioned, Gainesville does not have any more contests. They already have 2 denied at this point. But during the course of them sort of looking at that and figuring that out, and I think that probably got lost in the shuffle somewhere of we've been in overtime and it's been intense and we had to stop and find questions and all that stuff. During the course of that, I sort of noticed that the answer was probably incomplete compared to what was on the paper. So during the course of that, of course, we called Brother Faubert over and we decide that the reread also has to be replaced. Now, of course, again, did the correct thing here in that the quizzer technically had an incorrect answer because his answer was incomplete, but was not given his full 30 seconds. So we're not throwing the whole question out. We're just replacing it with a like reread. But in doing so, that also wipes out the contest that went along with it. So there was no foul issued for Gainesville because it's as if that contest never happened, because it's as if the reread never happened. And I'm sure that when they contested, I didn't ask him this, but I'm sure that when they contested and went back, for the Treadway probably told them, we don't have any more of these to use. And so, again, just sort of a whole confluence of events. I mean, how long do you estimate that it actually took from the end of question 20 to the end of question 21? I mean, we're talking probably 15 minutes here, I would guess.
Oh yeah, it was it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot, but it was fantastic. Can't say it enough. If you haven't watched it, go to the Bible Quizzing Facebook page and watch the replay. It's well worth it. Fantastic quiz from all the quizzers. Just a great way to wrap up a great nationals. Then we get to let's talk about awards very quickly. I think we all kind of called the top 3 quizzers of the year in the experience division. I know we're focusing on experience right now. Sorry, we're very experience minded guys. We're going to talk about intermediate too. But really, we had Riley get a trifecta. If you don't know what a trifecta is, she was national champion, highest scorer on the all tournament team, and national quizzer of the year. Which there's only been a few of those ever. So great esteemed company. So congratulations to Riley, and she earned it. And then Lane, fantastic year, fantastic quizzer last year. And then we had Timmy Frost, who's from my district. Absolutely love Timmy. Best people. Love them so much. So really happy that he was up there. Then we had Jared from Virginia. Absolutely great year beginning to end. I think they won every single tournament they went to until nationals, which I mean that's what do you say? I think they lost 2 quizzes all year before nationals. Just fantastic year. Jared Mowdy is he's a fantastic young man. I really enjoy getting to know him this year a little bit. Looking forward to seeing what he does next year. I feel like he felt like he came up short. But God has proven to me over and over again that God cares about who wins and loses at least a little bit. And sometimes you gotta God's got a lesson for you to learn in a loss. So maybe not. Maybe that's just how it fell. But I am really proud of him, and I am glad that he was up there on that stage for Quizzer of the Year last Tuesday.
I will also quickly say, when it comes to Jared, I believe that he's the first non-last year quizzer to get a Quizzer of the Year nomination, at least in the last couple years. I know last year was all last year quizzers. I don't know about the year before. Maybe there was one, but it could be the case where it's been a couple years since anyone that's not a last year quizzer has gotten a nomination. And that just goes to show how great of a season that he had, even if, their team, as you said, maybe came up short at nationals this year.
They were a fantastic team all year. And there has been a bias towards last year quizzers, which I think there kind of should be. I think we should kind of being a last year quizzer should kind of give you a little bit of a bump on the quizzer of the year, in my opinion. But all of these quizzers this year absolutely deserved it. Bella Huey had a great tournament. She was the fourth runner up, National Quizzer of the Year. Great year. For Experienced Coach of the Year, everybody was awesome. Everyone, it was just really great to see everyone up there. Brother Frost is from my district, and I just gotta say it again, the best people. Like, it was absolutely my pick for National Coach of the Year. He's I wish I could share all the stories about like what he's done for us, like our church and our program, like personally what he's done for us. I don't know if he'd be comfortable with me sharing everything, but he has blessed us so much. They work tirelessly in junior Bible quizzing and senior Bible quizzing. Just the best people, and absolutely well deserved. So happy for him. And everyone. We can't name everybody. I'm so sorry. We should name everybody, but we can't tonight. In intermediates, let's talk about intermediates. Congratulations to Virginia, 2 years in a row. Ashton Kissel was in the championship all 3 years of his intermediate quizzing, which is pretty impressive. I don't know if anyone else has been in the intermediate finals all 3 years of your intermediate career. So, shout out to that team. Great job, your uncle. So that's another Faubert connection there. Did you get to talk to him much about his tournament?
Touch base a bit. Most of our conversations were more just casual, just family stuff, you know. But he's one of the most entertaining coaches to watch, both at the quiz board and just discussing after the fact. So I could definitely see and heard a lot of passion, a lot of appreciation, and I mean, goes without saying how proud that he and Brother Kissel were of their team. I mean, great team. I'm sure that they're going to continue gaining success in experience division. If they were in experience this year, I'm sure they would have found a lot of success. So, they were definitely elated.
As they should be.
Just a quick note on what you mentioned, Phil. Columbus won intermediate 3 straight years, I think, from 08 to 2010. So
nice.
Has been done once before.
Was that Tanner? Was Tanner on all 3 of those teams?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ashton, you didn't win all 3, so sorry. I'm picking Ashton. Great year. If you're listening to this, absolutely fantastic year. 2 years in a row that they lost the round 1 finals, then won twice in the championship, which that's tough stuff. Been there. So New York Metro, 2nd place team in intermediate, 5th place team in experienced. I love those families. There's like 2 families that make up the majority of those teams, and they are just awesome. Absolutely love seeing them. I only get to see them typically at nationals every year, but just all in quizzing families. Just they don't have a lot of competition over there in New York, so they don't get a lot of quizzing throughout the year. And to be able to perform the way that they do at nationals year in and year out, incredible. Just really, really, really love them. Intermediates, I didn't get around to watching too much. I was obviously pulling for our Illinois teams. Had some crazy stuff that happened that was kind of unfortunate for them, but Stella and Ashlyn had a fantastic year. Love them. Looking forward to coaching against them in experience next year. I'm sure they're going to give me plenty of headaches. So, and I'm looking forward to them. So excited about that. All right. Any other quizzing notes besides the championship? Chad, what was the best quiz you saw?
Well, I have a lot of stuff on that, Phil, but I have it saved until after my recap of the trophy stuff.
Okay. Well, that's a fine segue then. Let's move right into your nerdy stuff here. What do you got for us?
So I'm going to save all the disclaimers that I've given the last couple of times that we've done this about not hurting people's feelings and so on and so forth. I will try to condense it as much as possible and just say that the reason that we talk about this stuff is just to recognize some people who have worked very hard and to kind of give them their just due. And if you want to see all the disclaimers about us looking at these things and also about why we focus on the experience division, just go watch the recap from last year from the 2024 NABQT. I think it's around the 25 or 30-minute mark is where I give all those. So feel free to go and do that for yourself. I won't do it all again. So generally what I'm looking at post tournament, the first thing I go and look at is sort of if we have any teams that have trophied for consecutive years or have a streak of 3 years or more. And also always kind of take a look at the church just in general, how many trophies has that church won? And of course I have a spreadsheet where I have all of that laid out. So there may even be a few things here as we go through that y'all may can help me clear up, or of course, if you have any commentary, feel free to break in at any time here. Let's start, I guess let's start at the top. That'll be the easiest way to do this. This was the third straight trophy for Gainesville Apopka, our national champions. The Raleigh Walker combo three years in a row. A couple of other quizzers mixed in at various times throughout those years, but those two being on all three teams, and then of course it just being the two of them this year. And I know that Gainesville has trophied 2 other times and Apopka 2 other times as well, if that's the same church. I'm not sure if there's more than one church in Apopka, but I do have an Apopka church that has trophied a couple of other times. Now, I will take a brief break here and say that one of the reasons that I only go back so far, my stuff only goes back to 1995, because prior to that, I don't have top 12 listings of teams. So when I'm talking about streaks and trophy totals and those kind of things, we're talking about over the last 30 years at this point. However, I always throw this in. If you are a coach that has been around a while, or maybe you've gotten reconnected and you have any brackets, pictures, results that are in some sort of, you have some sort of source document for that I can take a look at that is prior to that, I would certainly greatly appreciate being able to fill in some of those blanks on my spreadsheet. So I know Rylan has been going back and taking a look at some of that stuff as well. So I'm sure he's going to be a great resource in that area also. So our second place team, of course, was Independence. Now, just to clear up what could be a little bit of confusion, up until last year, this team was known as Liberty. But if I understand correctly, the church, the congregation is everything, and everything is the same. The building just moved locations. They moved into a new building, which is technically in another city. So they've gone from Liberty to Independence, but it is the same church, the same church group, same church family, same pastor, all that stuff. So
also, the names of the towns are synonyms. So there you go.
Nice. Alan did not like it. So just when I'm talking about streaks and stuff, even though, and I may even slate between calling them Liberty and Independence, but considering that all as one church, that of course makes 4 straight for Liberty/Independence or some combo team. I think Lane's first year in experience, he was quizzing with another church, but him as the through thread there for the Liberty/Independence church, that makes 4 straight. And I think that church has 7 trophies overall, and I think there's only maybe 6 churches that have more than that over the past 30 years. So a lot of success for them over that time. Third place was Palm Bay/West Palm Beach. And so again, sort of a unique scenario here, and I'll talk more about this here in a few minutes, but as we get more and more of these combination teams that are trophying, I kind of have to decide how to treat this with whose church gets the credit, or do we give it to both, or do we call it something separate? So for now, I'm just kind of looking at both churches, but I'll make a decision on what to do about that moving forward. I know for I think Elise is part of the Palm Bay portion of the team. And this marks the second consecutive trophy for her. She trophied last year. Chase moved up. He's the West Palm Beach portion. He moved up from intermediate last year. He trophied in intermediate last year, and then moved up in the combined teams and trophied again. I do think this is. I think this was the first trophy I could find for West Palm Beach in the experience division. Fourth place was the church in Euless, Texas, and that was the first trophy for this church. So awesome job by them, starting a new legacy there at that church. And when we do these, I always sort of make the distinction: we are happy and proud and pleased for those teams that have been doing this a long time, put these streaks together and have trophied 10 times or whatever it is. But we're just as equally thrilled for those teams that are starting something new, that are setting up something new for their church that they can be proud to be a part of. Again, not better or worse, but just two different scenarios that we're looking at here, and want to give recognition to both for sure. And we have another similar situation here with one of the fifth place teams in Mount Vernon. Historically, not a lot of trophies for the New York Metro District, but the last couple of years, you guys mentioned them already. Those families have kind of built a program from scratch, it seems like, in that church, and have had a ton of success starting at the junior level and have built it up through the intermediate and now experience divisions. And this marks the second consecutive trophy for them in experience. And I know those same two quizzers that were on the experience team this year also won the intermediate division in 2023. So just in terms of quizzer specific, 3 straight really successful years for them. Then, of course, your team, Phil, the Addison-Bloomington combo. I have a church from Addison that trophied one other time in 1995. I don't know if that's the same church or if there's more than one church. Yes. Okay, good. I can make note of that. And then, of course, Bloomington or some other Bloomington combo has won trophies in 4 other years. So at least one other year had a combination team, and then of course was with you guys for a couple of those years. But Austin, the South Central Texas 1 team, that was the first trophy for this, not just for this church, but also the first trophy for this district since they took the moniker of South Central Texas. Now there was a San Antonio team that trophied in the late 90s that now would be considered part of the South Central Texas district, but of course back then they were labeled as a Texas team. But since the South Central Texas district was formed, this is the first trophy for that district. So I thought that was a cool note as well. And of course, knowing Micah as we do, won't be surprised if they add a couple more to that tally over the next few years. Then also in that tied for 7th slot, we have another combo team, Wausau Mequon, Wisconsin. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce either of those.
Dude, Wisconsin names are tough. If you ever drive around Wisconsin, the names are outrageous.
But I'll take your name for it. I don't have any plans to drive around Wisconsin anytime soon. But first trophy for either church there. So great job by them, and obviously had a good season throughout. And unfortunately did not get to see them quiz. But from looking at the results and talking to a couple of people, it sounds like the team and Aubrey especially had a really great team. So happy for them. And then, of course, our 4 teams in that tied for 9th slot, O'Fallon / North Shore, the Illinois 1 team. That marks 3 consecutive years trophying for the O'Fallon Church, Timmy specifically. In the 9th place spot, your team, Rowland, Hazelwood / Lebanon. That is the 3rd time that a Lebanon combo team with Lebanon has trophied, and I think Hazelwood has 7 other trophies in the experience division.
I believe that's the first trophy for the 3 quizzers in intermediate or experience, correct, Rylan?
No, Emma was on the Lebanon intermediate team that placed, I want to say, second.
I remember that. Yep, that Jillian.
Yeah,
Yep,
with
I
Jillian.
remember that team. Yes.
Tied for ninth also DeLand, Florida, the Florida 2 team. The first trophy for this church in experienced, but those same two quizzers were part of the intermediate team that trophied last year. So good job on them moving up, having some immediate success there. And then in the last tied for ninth slot, combo team Denham Springs and West Monroe Arc, which is a different church than the West Monroe church that also trophied in intermediate, just kind of making that distinction there. First trophy in the experience division for the West Monroe Arc church, although the quizzer from that church, Owen, I believe they trophied in intermediate. I believe he was on trophied in intermediate last year. And then, of course, we know the history and legacy of the Denham Springs Church. I think they have 22 trophies over the past 30 years, which
That's crazy.
far outstrips any other church by a pretty wide margin. So just a few notes that I made about the trophying teams and experience, and I will touch briefly on the intermediate teams here in just a moment. But trophy specific, a few things that I noted here. All or part of 6 teams from last year in the experience division trophied again. So we had about a half and half breakdown there of repeats versus newcomers. Of the 12 teams that trophied, there were 6 of them that trophied at BQE, which is actually well down from last year. When we had this same discussion last year, I think 10 of the 12 trophy teams at Nationals last year were also BQE trophy teams. So just had kind of going back to what I mentioned at the start of the conversation here, it felt like it was a bit more of a shakeup at Nationals with just some new blood getting in the mix there. But Denham Springs, which it was a slightly different iteration of the team. I think they did not combine until with West Monroe Arc until after BQE. So slightly different iteration of the team, but I'm counting them. Denham Springs, Gainesville, Euless, Independence, O'Fallon, and then your team, Phil, Addison, Bloomington, were all trophy teams at both BQE and NABQT. Of the 12 teams, I counted 5 of the 12 that had a last year quizzer on them, just something that I always like to note. Now, I don't try to make a distinction of this is their best quizzer or this quizzer is not going to matter or whatever it is. I just go through and count, how many teams have a last year quizzer that's aging out just to sort of guarantee that the dynamic of the team will change at least somewhat going into the following year. And there were 5 of those trophy teams, including, of course, we know those top 2 teams losing Gainesville, losing Raleigh, and then Independence losing 3 quizzers. So those teams will certainly change there. I do have several other things to note, but let's flip over real quick and just talk about intermediate trophies. Of course, you guys mentioned Ashburn, Virginia already, our back-to-back champions. The team from Central Louisiana, the Grace Church, trophied last year and trophied again this year. And then 2 Texas teams from Lufkin, the Eastview Church, and then from College Station, both trophied last year and this year again. So from our trophy teams last year in intermediate, we had 4 teams that trophied again with at least a close representation of what the team was last year. And then at least 4 of those intermediate teams from last year, at least part of them moved up and trophied and experienced. So you had 8 of those intermediate teams who trophied last year, seeing some level of success this year at NABQT, whether it was again in the intermediate division or moving up to experience. So definitely thought that was a good sign there. Okay, so I have lots of other things to talk about, but anything you guys want to comment on there that was trophy related?
I don't think so, but it was great to see a lot of new faces up there for sure, and there's a lot of teams that worked really hard. Sometimes you gotta have a kind of a lucky break. Maybe not a lucky break; it's the wrong way to say. But teams that do really well, sometimes you have to have something that kind of goes your way, that one question or whatnot. And it's always great to see people up there. So, Ryland, anything?
I would certainly agree that I think that if you were trying to predict this Nationals, the final results were definitely unpredictable to some extent. However, at least for me personally, I thought throughout the entirety of this year, you definitely had your clear cut teams that were consistently good. We mentioned the team from Gate City, Hampton, Gainesville, Florida, Independence, that have been good for if not 2 years, 3 years.
Nacogdoches as well had a fantastic.
Yes, Alto Nacogdoches. Um, but beyond maybe those mainstay teams, I, at least in my opinion, thought that there was quite a large sort of cluster of teams that I really couldn't tell you which of them were clearly better than the other. Probably a dozen or so teams. And so, from that perspective, it wasn't entirely shocking that those teams sort of beat each other in a sense, which a lot of that did end up happening. And so, we sort of got the results that we did. But I definitely thought that there was just a lot of competition at that level, to where anything could happen.
A couple of other things that I thought of that I wanted to say. Shout out to the Pennsylvania team, new team Merritt. Absolutely. Well, I was really hoping they'd get it. Christopher Jean is a fan of BQ Chats. He's emailed me multiple times with questions of ways that he could better himself as a quizzer. He came up to me while I was about to get ready for my first rehearsal on drums, and I was discombobulated trying, and I just see this kid walk up with the biggest smile you've ever seen. He's like, "I'm Christopher," and I was like, "The one from Pennsylvania?" And it's like, yeah, it was just so cool, so awesome. I really, really love that he came up and introduced himself. Really love the whole family is just gems. Just really loved them. I think everybody was really ecstatic for them that they got new team Merritt. I'll tell you what, watch out for that team. They're going to be figuring some stuff out, and they're all in. So really excited to see them in the future.
I think they trophied at BQE this year, if I remember correctly.
And I believe they placed 13th at this NABQT, so only one away from getting a trophy there too.
They did very well, and they are a very fresh program from what I understand. So really excited to see the growth that will take place there. I know they made some connections, some really good connections to some people that are going to be able to help give them ideas of ways that they can take a jump next year. So excited to see that for them. Also, it was really cool to see Anthony Cash get recognized for building a program, a new program over. It's at Massachusetts,
Maryland.
Okay, sorry. Yes, that was in the intermediate division. But shout out to Anthony for a former quizzer that moves away from home, starts a program. From what I understand, I don't know the whole story, but just really awesome to see former quizzers going and planting seeds and starting it up and expanding this ministry. So shout out to you, Anthony. Great job.
Well, actually, second time that he's done that. Either last year or the year before, one of his quizzers, he was at a different church in, I think it was the Massachusetts Rhode Island district. I'm not sure what church it was, but one of his quizzers was on the all tournament team a couple of years ago. So that actually marks twice in the last 2 or 3 years that he's kind of again started from scratch and built something successful. So kudos.
Absolutely. Any other shout outs, you guys? Just people you want to recognize for a great year, great nationals?
I got to meet Christopher also. I'd kind of been keeping an eye on the team's success throughout the year. I noticed they did well at BQE, but I did not know him personally. But he came up to me at Chipotle and introduced himself, so I was very happy to get to meet him.
Ryland, what you think?
I mean, if I'm not sure if we're going to be getting into anything on a more individual level, so I don't want to overstep here. But I definitely just want to give more credit to our champions, specifically Riley, who had an absolutely unbelievable tournament. I'm sure that we're going to delve into that potentially a bit more.
If we can. So, you say your far first. I'll say mine.
Yeah, she was lights out. I mean, I think that uh, from the 10 pointers to the 20 pointers to the 30 pointers, she was quizzing at a level where it seemed like if she wanted to be the one to interrupt at a good hit point, she was going to be the one to interrupt. Her speed was on point. Her material knowledge was on point. Especially for being a part of a team where, throughout the entirety of the year, they were a very well balanced team. Both her and Walker are both amazing quizzers. But something about last tournament, she quizzed the best tournament that I've seen her quiz at in her final tournament. And there wasn't a quiz that she was off. And so I can't sing her praises enough.
There's a lot of last year quizzers whose last quiz does not go as well as hers did. Avery is, big part of this show and big part of my life. And his last quiz was a little ugly. Just did not go his way. And that happens to a lot of last year quizzers. Just a lot of pressure. And for her to deal with that on top of everything, the moment, everything else, I was highly impressed. So, getting super nerdy here with stats. So, I like interruption statistics, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but Nathan Fisher was a previous quizzer of mine, and he was a brain, just one of the most intelligent guys I know, and he loves stats too. So we found a way to combine how much you're interrupting with how efficient you're interrupting. So basically, there's a stat on UPC quiz called the number of interrupted correct per quiz. So a good number for a quizzer would be like 4 or 5 interrupted correct per quiz on average. That's you're interrupting and getting 4 or 5 right every quiz.
Yeah, and not to interrupt you, Phil, I think that would surprise some people when you say that, because you think, oh, quizzers can get correct in a quiz. It's not very often that you see a quizzer get over 5 interrupted correct questions, like on average per
Right.
game. Like obviously in any one given quiz, they may have 5 or 6 or 7, but to average 5 plus interrupted correct per game is actually really, really rare. And as a matter of fact, most good quizzers sit somewhere around 4 interrupted correct per game.
Well, because you're not counting rereads if a quizzer's getting a couple of rereads or whatnot. So yeah,
not hitting anymore after the quiz gets locked. All those things come into play.
Exactly. So five is a really high number, but let's just say 5. Now, so someone could be interrupting and getting 6 correct per quiz, but if they're doing that at a 50% interrupted correct percentage, you're hurting your team. Okay, if you're getting 6 right, you're also getting 6 wrong. And giving up rereads. That's not good. We don't like.
No, you're not.
What do you mean? No, you're not.
You can't get 6 wrong, Phil.
Oh yeah, but if you are in this world that I'm creating, all right. So
they make you go sit down. I don't know if you do that or not, but once you get to 5,
yeah, that never happened to me. So so I wanted a number that really showed how much a quizzer's interruptions are helping the team. And so what Nathan did, we figured out 60% is kind of the break-even point. And I thought it was 66. It's not 66. 60% is the break-even point. Assuming that the other team gets all the rereads correct, which we always just assume that, which isn't always the case, but we assume it. So if you get 3 20-pointers right, you've gained 60 points. And if you miss 2, that puts you at 60% correct. You have lost 20 points, and you have given the other team 40 points in rereads, which comes out to 60. So you've evened out. So knowing this is really nerdy, I know some people are rolling their eyes right now, but what we did is we made this statistic, and I got a formula that I run. And what it is your it was called the net interruption score. That's what we named it. And I'd love for this to get adopted more widely. But the highest your net interruption score can be is how many interrupted correct questions per quiz you have. So if you have 5, say, Chad, you have 5 interrupted correct questions per quiz at 100%. You've gotten every single one. Your NIS is 5. Okay, that's an excellent score. Okay, now Rylan, you've got 6 interrupted correct per quiz,
But
at 60% interrupted correct. Your NIS is 0. Okay, so this obviously would never happen because Rylan was way better than Chad. If your interrupted correct percentage is 60, then your NIS is 0, no matter how many correct you have. So your score, you have your ceiling at how many you're interrupting per quiz and getting them right, and then your percentage from 100 to 60 changes what your score is. If you have a negative net interruption score, that means you're hurting your team. You have a sub 60% interrupted correct percentage. Okay, just explain all that. So the Riley of teams that trophied, since 2010, she has the second highest NIS score, only behind Allie Gentry in 2019. So and it's like 300ths of a point off. I mean, they're basically had the same kind of turn. So since 2010, that's super impressive. And I don't, I could name a ton of people. I have the list in front of me. It's but she was interrupting not only a lot, she was interrupting very efficiently. And that's what it takes. She was interrupting 5.57 interrupted correct per quiz at 81.25% correct. So she was missing 1 out of every 5, and she was getting 5.5 a quiz. It doesn't get much better than that. So,
well, I think that matches with what we saw. That kind of matches the eye test, like Rylan said. If for the most part, if she wanted it, she got it. And I mean, again, just sort of putting some of the numbers that you were talking about in context. You were talking, we started looking at some of these things while I was quizzing. And of course, we would have to do it manually from our paper score sheets, but we were always kind of looking at, okay, 60% is the break even point. But it didn't take us long to figure out that like 70%, I know that doesn't sound like a big gap between 60 and 70%, but 70% is a really good quizzer. If you're interrupting at a 70% rate, and I know I mentioned this last year on the podcast as well, but if you go and look at those interruption percentages on UPC Quiz, a whole host of the quizzers fall somewhere between 60 and 70%. And then when you get to that 70% range, those are usually, you're kind of seeing a step up in a level in general. 75% is really good. So for her to be over 80%, I mean, that's way, way, way up there in the stratosphere, especially when you look at the fact that they quizzed 7 quizzes, just by nature of double elimination bracket, 4 or 5 of those quizzes are going to be against other trophying teams. So, I mean, definitely impressive there. She averaged over 7 correct per quiz, which is, again, almost unheard of. Very, very rare for a quizzer to average more than 7 correct per quiz, especially at that level at the NABQT to be a trophying team. You just do not see that very often at all. And I will, again, we mentioned him already, but shout out to Jared Mowdy. He averaged over 6 interrupted correct per game, which again, that's just kind of almost unheard of. That led everybody by a wide margin. Like we mentioned earlier, I mean, 4 is a good quizzer. 5 is really, really rare. To have over 6 interrupted correct per game, you just don't see that very often, especially at that level. So, I mean, obviously taking into account that they quizzed 4 quizzes versus 6 or 7 or 8 for some of the higher placing trophy teams, but still impressive there.
Absolutely. One other kid I want to shout out. Simone Jones from Virginia was 12 years old. And I talked about my nerdy stat. She has the 3rd highest in intermediates at an intermediate national since 2010. 3rd highest NIS score. She was 83% interrupted correct at 5.14 per quiz. as a 12-year-old.
5.14 correct or 5.14
5.14 interrupted correct per quiz.
interrupted correct. Okay.
83.72% as a 12-year-old first-year senior quizzer.
Nice.
Great job, Simone. And the trophy, they got 7th place.
Mhm.
Just she was a little firecracker. Goodness, I saw her quiz at Chase Marshall this year. Outstanding quizzer. I would love, more quizzers to have her attitude. She just took the challenge of senior quizzing coming from juniors, and she just said, "I'm going to figure it out," and she did. So shout out to her. She had a fantastic year, fantastic tournament. She's going to be a little scary if she continues on the path she's on right now. So shout out to that team. Congratulations. That's Travis's team. Shout out to him. Also, that's who I want to shout out. Travis. I had no idea that dude could play piano the way that he plays piano. He blew my mind. It was just absolutely fun. I had a blast playing drums. So much fun. Drums is just a blast for me. So did I get to do it in a cool venue like the Galt House with all the great quizzing people? And quizzer events are the best worship events. I mean, nobody worships like a group of quizzers. So anytime I've gotten an opportunity to do any sort of music at a quizzer event, I always love those opportunities because it's just the presence of God moves so strong. Outstanding message. We didn't even talk about the messages this year. Outstanding messages in our devotionals this year. Couldn't have been better. Couldn't have been more on point. And it really directed us towards next year, which we can talk about. Doctrine. What do you guys think about the theme? Obviously, no one saw it coming. I'm just kidding. Everyone knew it was going to be doctrine, pretty much. All right. So, what do you guys think?
Hang on, Phil. I'm not done with this year yet.
Oh, we're not done with this year yet? Okay.
No, there's so much more to come. So one thing that we always like to talk about each year is, and I mentioned this last year, every year whoever wins the national championship, the path to success or sort of the formula looks very different. And I always like going back and looking at a team as they progress through the bracket and sort of what it took, and especially if I get to watch multiple of their quizzes. We talked about, I know with Western last year, we talked about how their formula for success was to come out of the 10s ahead in virtually every single quiz they quizzed, in some quizzes in dominating fashion, sort of tread water in the 20s, and then Esther just kind of finished whoever it was off in the 30s, which she was really clutch last year. And so, and I also mentioned how that felt different to me. Like, I usually feel like the 20s is where quizzes are sort of won or lost most of the time, and just sort of a complete flip and reversal. So, of course, I did the same thing for Florida last year. Just I got to see, I think, 5 of their 7 quizzes, so had a pretty good handle on it already. But I always like to go back and kind of look at things. So for me, just kind of formula for success for them was number one, take care of business early. They blocked multiple quizzes early. I think only 2 of their 7 quizzes came down to the last question. And in at least 3, maybe 4 of their quizzes, they had it locked either before the 30s or by question 18. So definitely helps. They were, as you mentioned, a relatively balanced team. It's not a one-man show. Walker obviously is very good. There were several quizzes where they'd come out of the 10s ahead, but didn't stop there, just kind of put their foot on the gas and were equally as strong in the 20s. I would say number 2, which we have already given her flowers, but it helps when you have, if not the best, one of the very top tier quizzers in the tournament. And I think we feel like she performed that way this tournament. Just super accurate, didn't miss a lot. And the other thing that I will say about them, I don't think they were perfect in this regard, but as even compared to a lot of the other trophy teams that I saw, one of the things that really helped them is that they didn't miss the freebies. For the most part, if they hit a quote, they got it. If they hit a reread, they got it. And I know, Phil, I've talked to you about this a little bit, but Rylan, you and I have discussed it even more extensively. Kind of feels like a theme the last few years, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe, with even a lot of your top tier teams missing either quotes or rereads. And definitely saw some more of that this year, even in multiple trophy games. So that was just kind of again, not saying that they were perfect, but that is one thing that I noticed about the Gainesville team is for the most part, they took advantage of the questions that, okay, I know that's one I'm supposed to get. I know that's one I'm not supposed to miss. They took advantage of that. So I think that was kind of the three parts. And I mean, of course, there's also the element of the quizzes that did come down to the last question. They got it when they needed to and finished it off. But it's a whole lot easier to do that in one or two quizzes as opposed to needing to do that or putting yourself in that position over and over again, which again is what we saw last year and it worked for them. So, but like I said, I just like to take a look each year at sort of the winning team. What did they do to get there? And so that was what I kind of saw from them. Any comments there?
I agree with you on if you want to win nationals, you can't miss the easy ones. So I coached Sherwin and Avery for a long time, and I didn't appreciate how little they missed ones they should get. If you hit a question right and you hit it at the right spot and you know your material and you know the questions, it's clear, like you can't afford to miss that, right? If you hit a quote and you get the information you need, you can't afford to miss it, right? Over the last few years after they left, I was like, oh, that's just not normal for like everyone to just do that all the time. So the boys I coached this year were fantastic. They worked their rears off all year. So proud of them. But being younger and inexperienced, we had quite a few times this year where they hit at the right spot and just they were 99% right. But you know what that means? You're wrong.
100% wrong.
And so that is for all quizzers, really strive to quiz clean and to not miss the ones that you shouldn't miss. I don't know how to say it other than that. So
yeah, and
right.
I'd even say, obviously, from a pure mathematical perspective, it goes without saying that free points, putting your team in a better position to win, but also from a more competitive psyche perspective, if a team's getting errors and then you're going ahead and getting them wrong, especially when, as you said, it's a well-known fact. I was taught that it was a cardinal sin to get a reread wrong. That if the other team's getting a reread wrong, that almost gives me more confidence when I just got it wrong to begin with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's that aspect playing as well, where I could be having a bad quiz, but if you're getting the rereads wrong, then in my mind I'm like, oh well, you're having a worse quiz than me because you're getting the rereads wrong. So yeah, strive for clean quizzing.
And I think clean quizzing begins with a foundation of good habits. Quoting well, enunciating just habitually. Like you can't not quote it clearly, right? Putting the reference on the end of the question when it should be there consistently. It's good habit. Thinking about pronouns as you say them, just habitually. You say a pronoun and an answer that's not a quote, you're instantly, either clarifying it or you're aware of it. Just clean quizzing habits.
When I'm working with quizzers, I call it best practices. This is not something that guarantees that you're going to get it right, and if you leave it off, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get it wrong. Sometimes you can get away with it, but if you just get into the habit of these best practices, you protect yourself in so many ways. You don't invite nearly as many contests. You don't give the other team nearly as many outs. You don't give the quizmaster nearly as many opportunities to find an issue with it. So just if you kind of learn and follow after these best practices, you save yourself a whole lot of heartache in the long run.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Okay.
So
now can we talk about next year?
No, Phil. I don't think you understand. You mentioned this briefly earlier, and I didn't really get a chance to jump in, and I don't have a lot here, but just sort of in terms of individual game performances, I always like to mention if there's something that kind of jumps out at me, especially if it's a quiz that I got to watch, and there's one that I didn't get to watch that I want you to comment on as well. Just a couple of the more impressive individual game performances that I saw, and teams that we've mentioned already. Gainesville, Apopka getting 13 out of the first 14 questions in a trophying game was pretty impressive, and most of those were interrupted. There were 2 or 3 reads probably, but most of those being interrupted. Good hit points, and just kind of came in and steamrolled there. And kind of similarly, one of the better quizzes we saw in session C in round 2 was the Florida 3 team that eventually ended up coming all the way back out to third when they quizzed Indiana 1, which, as we know, is not a slouch team at all. I think they had trophied 3 or 4 consecutive years coming into this year. So unfortunate that those 2 teams had to meet that early in the round 2 bracket. I think Florida 3 got the first 720s against them.
Wow.
And it was sort of split between the 2 quizzers. I think one of them got 3 and one of them got 4. And again, that was only with a couple of rereads mixed in. They were mostly interrupted questions. So again, good tag teamwork there. And again, against a very competitive and proficient team, I thought that was super impressive. Phil, I didn't get to see this quiz, but just from looking at the score sheet, I was interested about you guys versus Alabama 1. It looked like that was a pretty intense quiz. I saw where Elias, I think, quizzed out on 19, and it came down to question 20 with him out of the quiz. So do you want to comment on that one real quick?
That was a tough quiz. I believe that was the trophy.
Yeah, that was to determine who was going to make it to the trophies.
I was really proud of my quizzers did not really let that. I don't even know if they knew. I think they knew, but we didn't talk about it. Obviously, you don't want to talk about it beforehand, but they quizzed patiently. We got a lot of our points from rereads this year at nationals. They tried to hit. They tried their best to hit the quotes and the directs, and let the other teams, hit a little too fast on the 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts. But that quiz was definitely Elias quizzed fantastic. He was quizzing really efficiently. He quizzed out a little too early. Fortunately for us, that last question, I like to coach my teams to go get the last question. So when my quizzer, after the point where he would typically interrupt, looks over at the other team to see if they're going to hit, I was like, I'd rather you just hit it and go win it. But they missed the last question for us to be up 5, and we didn't need the reread. So not really too much to say. We quizzed efficiently, and we kind of let the other team give us some. And if we needed to win it at the end, we were more comfortable with that idea. Although we didn't do as great in the 30s as we had all year, but we did do good in the 30s of 1 quiz, and that was against Texas 1, which I love that team. I love both of those quizzers. That was the scariest quiz of the tournament for me, for sure.
Well, I felt like whoever won that quiz out of you guys in the Texas 1 team was going to have a chance to kind of walk back through that round 2 bracket. And so, again, like I mentioned earlier, unfortunate that it happened that early in round 2, but that is the nature of the double elimination bracket sometimes. But anyway, I just wanted you to comment on that quiz because, like I said, I did not get to see it, but it looked like it was a good one there. And just to clarify so that I'm not speaking incorrectly, Elias actually quizzed out on question 18. You guys needed 19 and 20 to win it because they were up by 40. And you guys got 19, and then they missed 20. And as you mentioned, you did not need the reread there.
That's such a big coaching point. Like, if you can tell your kid they don't need a reread, like, the sooner, like, that's huge. Because in the 30s, sometimes those 30s are tough. So if you can be really aware of if you need it or not. Shout out to my quizzer, Avery Smith. She was always the one to be like, hey, do we need the reread? Do we need the reread? And that always was important because I'm always thinking of too many things. So, coaching point. Know if your team needs the reread or not. All right.
I will move relatively quickly through the rest of this. Just a few other oddities that at the tournament this year, things that jumped out to me. So we mentioned Walker a couple of times already. This is, I said that this was the third straight trophy for Gainesville-Apopka, which is true, but Walker was actually part of the Wisconsin team that I think won the year before that. And so this is actually 4 straight trophies for him personally, and that's coming straight from juniors. He did not quiz intermediate. So straight into the fire in the experience division and 4 straight trophies. I only know
two of them first.
Yeah. I only know of one other quizzer that has done that, come straight from juniors to experienced and trophied in the first 4 years. So impressive there. Who could that have been? Someone that I'm very close to.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. It's my brother. And he actually trophied all 7 years in experienced. So shout out to him. Yeah. I want to mention this, and we can take some time to discuss this or not right now. It's up to you guys. There were 7 combo teams that trophied inexperienced this year. In other words, more than one church represented on the team, which is by far the most ever. As a matter of fact, I could not find a year with more than 4 in the trophies prior to this year. So if y'all want to take a couple of minutes to sort of, and it's definitely trending that direction in recent years as well. Like if you go back to like prior to 2010, 2012, something like that, almost none of the teams are combo. Like you might have one every other year or something like that. Now, I think some of that might be attributable to record keeping. They might have just listed one church on the results. I think that's a possibility. But I like just thinking back to my time in quizzing, there were definitely a whole lot less combination churches and teams than there are now. So either you guys want to take a stab at that and sort of why you think that's the case, because I have my own theories, but I would love to hear what you all think. If you think we can take the time to do that right now.
Take a minute.
I can't really say that I am too well versed in this to give as in-depth an opinion as either of you two, but I will say, just adding on to sort of the recent prevalence of this sort of situation, even at invitationals and things like that, I feel like it's been way more common for quizzers to just, we're just going to team up for this tournament, or we're just going to combine our teams just for this tournament and stuff. Whereas when I quizzed, that was, I felt like it was all but absent. So not even at the national level for your quote unquote real team, but even at invitationals that are slightly more casual, I guess. I feel like I still see combined teams and just quizzers that just quizzing with their friends or for whatever reason.
I think I did see that quite a bit of invitationals. I think quite a few times it was because like a last year quizzer, an older quizzer wanted to go to a big invitational, but their teammate couldn't go. At least I knew of a few times that I know that happened to Riley. I believe that happened to Jared. I believe that happened to Karsten, where they wanted to go, but their teammate couldn't go, so they team up with someone else. That's normal-ish. It definitely happened more this year than I was used to. But I think as far as the number of teams that trophied this year, and maybe there's the number of overall combination teams, I think we're probably still feeling some COVID hangover a little bit. You know, COVID knocked a lot of quizzers out. And one thing about the experience division is you don't quiz when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, unless you are all, you are in. I feel like the numbers just diminish somewhat from intermediate to experience just as kids get older and get more responsibility. The ones that stay till they're 17 or 18 are the ones that live that life. And I'm curious if COVID just knocked a portion out where they're just less experienced quizzers overall, which means more individual quizzers that need to team up for whatever reason. Now I hope, especially with doctrine coming, that we have an explosion of new churches, new quizzers, new families that are getting involved, and that we see less of the opportunity to team up because churches just have a plethora of quizzers to quiz. So that's the hope. That's certainly the hope. So, Chad, any other theories?
Well, a brief comment on the invitationals first, Rylan. I feel like back in my day that would have been very taboo. like I think it was looked at in a much more from a competitive sense than like a let's go have fun at Bayou Blast sense. Like I felt like people would have thought that you were trying to gain some type of competitive advantage by teaming up. We even saw some cases, and again, just to be clear, I have no issue with this. If the kids want to quiz, I say let them quiz. But like we saw some invitational this year where quizzers who were not even from the same district would team up with one another. And I mean, without being able to go back and have these conversations, I can tell you almost certainly that back in my day, that would have been frowned upon. It would have been, oh, they're just trying to team up and crush everybody at this tournament, and this is gaining a competitive advantage and those kind of things. If you wanted to quiz, I mean, there were certainly cases that I saw where if you wanted to quiz and your quiz partner couldn't go, you just found somebody else from your church that was the right age to come sit at the board with you and you quizzed by yourself. As a matter of fact, there were whole years that people did that. It wasn't just for invitationals. That was how their quiz team survived. And so to sort of segue that into these combo teams that are trophying now, and I'm sure there are a lot of contributing factors, but I think just from what I've seen, probably two primarily, and one of them you guys mentioned already. I do think that the numbers in general have dwindled a little bit, and so if you legitimately cannot find someone else from your own church, I will also say that, and technology has probably helped move this in this direction a little bit. Again, it felt like back in the day that if you didn't have someone from your church to quiz with, you found the next closest church and quizzed with them. It was a whole lot easier to facilitate practices and those kinds of things. Now you may see teams that are 2, 3, 4 hours apart that are quizzing together, and in a lot of cases, it feels like it's two really good quizzers that are teaming up. And again, not saying that that's bad or wrong, but it just felt like that was a whole lot less common 15, 20 years ago. And then I do sort of think that the second element to that is something that I mentioned a second ago, and that is that it doesn't feel like there is the drive to find the quizzers in your own church. Like if you have one quizzer who's really good and they don't have anybody to quiz with them, you just go and find somebody else to quiz with. Like that's just a whole lot more accepted now. And like I said, we had teams that went whole years back in our day that if they just found somebody to sit at the board with whoever the number one quizzer was that wanted to quiz, and if they learned a few verses and got a few questions, that was kind of a bonus. So I think probably some combination of those factors. Like I said, not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing, just noting it that the trend is moving in that direction and that it swung even more heavily that way this year.
All right.
A couple of other quick things. 3 trophies for the Florida district this year in the experience division. First time since 2018 that's happened for one district, and that year Louisiana actually had 4 teams in the trophies in 2018. So it's been a few years since that happened. I mentioned this to you guys via text, but the 24 trophies across the 2 divisions were only spread across 10 states. Not that means anything one way or the other, but just something that I noted. I know that Florida had 5, Texas had 5. I know that Louisiana and Missouri were in the mix with a couple apiece there, Illinois as well. So Virginia, I'm just spitballing all that off the top of my head, but just something that I noticed there. Now that is states, not districts. So that's not accounting for the fact that, of course, Texas, North Texas, South Central Texas, all different districts. But just something that I noticed there. Again, I don't think that means anything, but it was just something that jumped out to me. As you guys mentioned, Lancaster winning the New Team Merit Award. It was the first award of any kind at experienced NABQT for a Pennsylvania team since 1992, when Uniontown, Pennsylvania was the New Team Merit Team of the Year that year. So good job to them in trying to build that program back up. You guys, somebody mentioned this already, Phil. I think you may have started off with this, that Riley hit the trifecta this year, meaning national champion, quizzer of the year, and high score. Had only been done twice in the previous 20 years. And who was that?
Camille
in 2023.
and Andrew Huffman.
Andrew Huffman in 2013. As a matter of fact, oddly enough, before this year, it had been exactly every 10 years. It was Camille in 2023, Andrew in 2013, and Amber Balch in 2003. Now, before that, it staggers a little more. I think there are only something like 6 of those all time prior to this year or something like that. So
That's pretty crazy.
maybe
Wow.
6 or 7, something like that. So I thought that was interesting. This was only the second time that I could find, or sorry, third time that I could find that the high score and second high score and Quizzer of the Year and runner-up Quizzer of the Year were the same 2 quizzers. That does not happen very often. So that being Riley and Lane, of course, it does not happen very often that it shakes out that way, that they're both high score and second high score and Quizzer of the Year and runner-up Quizzer of the Year. The only 2 others that I could find were 2016 when it was Vincent Beardsley and Megan Favorite. Now, of course, they were flipped. Megan was the Quizzer of the Year and Vincent was the high score, and then vice versa for the second high score and runner up there. And then in 2007, Jay Lytle was both high score and Quizzer of the Year, and Ben Aguinaldo was both second high score and runner up. So I thought that was interesting to know that you just don't see it come out that way very often, where those 2 quizzers are the same. This was the 4th consecutive year where the Quizzer of the Year came from the first place team. So kind of an interesting trend there. But prior to that, it had only been once in the previous 7 years. So I guess we will see if that's a trend or just a coincidence, but just something that I noticed there, that's been the case over the last several years. And
I have a question.
Yes.
First time we've had a Rocky Mountain District team represented the tournament in quite a while, I believe, right? Did you track that at all?
I did not. It's hard to look at just teams represented, just because you have to go and look at each individual tournament and look at the entire bracket. There's not really like a list of teams represented. Right. Maybe that's something Rylan can compile in all of his free time. But I don't have a list of those. But I think Eric actually told us at some point this year that it had been, I want to say he said something like 10 years, maybe, and I may be totally misremembering that, but I think he told us at some point this year that it had been something like a decade since the Rocky Mountain District had a team represented.
Well, so that was cool. Don't put it past Eric to really build something over there in the Rocky Mountain District. Really, really excited for that district to get on board and get started.
We mentioned that on this podcast last year, that if there's anybody that can get that kicked off and off the ground and running, it's going to be Eric, and he's already doing a phenomenal job there. The last thing that I want to note for now is that this was the end of the longest trophying streak in history, which was prior to this year. Alexandria had trophied for 9 consecutive years. So, nobody, only a couple of other churches have even 7, and it definitely drops off from there. So, not to focus on the part that they did not trophy this year, but just saying what an incredible streak that has been for them. So sad that it had to come to an end this year, but just a phenomenal job for that program over the past several years. What a great job that they've done there. So I have a couple of other small things, but at least one of them is part of quiz trivia, which I'm saving till the end. So before we do you want to do quiz trivia first, or do you want to do the look ahead to 2026 first?
Well, we can do the quiz trivia. Let's do the quiz trivia.
All right. So we did have one interesting thing happen in our session that is not part of trivia, but that I did want to note. We had a contest called on a question in which a quizzer on their team got it correct. So red 1 was called correct and red 3 contested. Okay. Now, for those of you that may not know, up until just a couple of years ago, that was not legal. It would have been a foul. It is legal now. Now, we can discuss the ramifications of how far quizzers and coaches should be allowed to stretch that, because the purpose of that rule is what?
In case in this, my team is partially responsible for this rule being taken out of the rule book. So in case a quizzer has a buzzer that is not working properly, they need an opportunity to be able to tell their coach that there is an issue, so their coach can point of order and to asked them to test the buzzers. And that happened to Avery Wilson in 2018 against Mattoon, Illinois. And Sherwin got a 10-pointer over Avery, and Avery immediately stood up and contested without even thinking about it. And then he just kind of did this, and we got a foul, but they fixed the buzzer. And I think that was one of the reasons. I know that I believe that similar thing happened to maybe Natalie Votaw as well, where, kids should have the opportunity to say, hey, my buzzer's not working. So I'm okay with the rule change.
I agree, but what happens then if a team does not use it for that purpose?
Well, if they use it as an extra timeout,
or whatever.
Well, you're wasting a contest.
Okay.
My opinion.
So anyway, that was just interesting because it's not something that you see very often. Okay. All right. So I did quiz trivia on here last year. Do you remember what my question was last year, Phil?
I cannot remember. I'm sorry.
Rylan, did you go back and watch it today?
I did not listen to the quiz trivia. No, I did not.
Rylan did not like my quiz trivia last year. So the question last year was about the only time that a quizzer can be called upon to answer even if they don't press their buzzer or it doesn't sound. So just to briefly mention that it can happen if, and again, sort of similar to our foul situation that we saw this year, if the quizzer makes some sort of exaggerated motion or drops their buzzer or makes some kind of distraction that is deemed by the quizmaster to be such, if it happens during the 5-second runoff, the quizmaster can actually call upon that quizzer to answer the question, even if they didn't press their buzzer. So page 28 of the rule book, you can go read it for yourself. So this year's quiz trivia has two parts. One of them is award related, and the other is rule related.
I don't even know what it takes to win a gold medal.
We want to ask you the hard questions like that, Phil. All right. So one of these is in honor of Rylan getting runner-up for Coach of the Year this year. So when that happened, I got to thinking about the fact that, of course, he had also been on stage for Quizzer of the Year. So I got to thinking about the crossover between those two awards. So three people in history have been in the top two in both Coach of the Year and Quizzer of the Year voting.
Is
one
this
of these
only experience or this experience and intermediate?
Experience division only. So one of these names I will be absolutely shocked if either of you get. The other two are in recent years and you should get them. One of them is Jay Lytle. Jay is the only person to win both awards.
Wow. Jay is the only one to win both awards. You said the other one was recent?
The Coach of the Year for the other has happened in the last 3 years. Now, their Quizzer of the Year was quite some time before that.
Oh, gosh. I should know who was the Coach of the Year the last few years.
This is my first year coaching, so I'm
not. You never paid attention to Coach of the Year before now. Oh, man. Yeah, you're going to have to tell us,
in
Chad.
top two for either?
For both. So they have to be both top two in Coach of the Year voting and top two in Quizzer of the Year voting.
Now, Eric won an experienced Quizzer of the Year and intermediate Coach of the Year, but
true. I did not cross over into the intermediate division for this. This individual, the other one that you should be able to figure out is
Susan Heimkreiter?
Nope.
Oh, they didn't give out Quizzer of the Year by that chance?
I do not have her listed. Not saying it. It's always possible that I missed one, but I don't have her listed. This individual was first runner-up Coach of the Year in 2023, and his Quizzer of the Year came in 1995.
Who's that?
Rylan, no stab at it?
I'm trying to go by the years for the 90s, the dark ages.
I'll give you another hint. When he was quizzing, he quizzed for a Tennessee team, but he does not coach in that district.
I definitely should know this based on my spreadsheet and stats.
You gotta tell us to us. Who is it, Chad?
That one is Brother Nathan Sterneman.
Really?
Runner-up quiz. Sorry, he was runner-up Quizzer of the Year in 1995 and runner-up Coach of the Year in 2023. So,
wow.
Yeah, quizzed in Tennessee, but now coaching A&E, of course. The other name is one that I would not have expected you all to get. Kevin Brewer was first runner-up Quizzer of the Year in 1994, and then the Coach of the Year just a few years later in 2001. So obviously won that as a very, very young coach. And just in double checking, Rylan, you're right. Susan Heimkreider is another one. The reason I did not have her down is because when she won Coach of the Year, it was given as a joint award, I think, with her and
Brother Pasley,
whoever she was coaching with. So anyway, just I thought that was, like I said, that was inspired by Rylan getting to hop up there this year. So I was just kind of thinking about, and I had a list of 5 or 6 more who had been in the top 5 nominees for both, but just to narrow it down a little bit, I cut it to top 2 there. Joe DeFrida, Brock Fergie, Angelo Meddards, Calvin Fisher, some names that some people may recognize there going back through the years. Other piece of quiz trivia is a rules thing. How long do sudden death 20-point questions continue until a change is made, and what change is made? So in honor of our overtime quiz this year.
I don't know. I thought it was forever.
Does it not just go question by question until someone's won?
That's what they say. That's what Brother
It
Faubert
does
said.
continue, but there is a change made at some point. When is it, and what is the change?
Do they go to a 10-point question?
They do eventually go to 10-point questions rather than 20s. At what point?
That's crazy.
Is it 10?
After question 28. So you have questions 21 through 23 that are 3 overtime 20-point questions. You quiz all 3 of those no matter what. After that, it goes to sudden death, 1 20-point question at a time. If you get to quiz 28 and if you get to question 28 and still no team has won, it then goes to 10-point questions. And I guess that just continues indefinitely. I'm not sure what you do if neither team wants to hit the buzzer, but I mean, I'm going to go ahead and tell you by question 24 or 25, if they're not hitting, I'm looking for questions out of the first 5 verses of study.
So that actually happened at a junior tournament, not this year, but I think it was last year. It was either last year or this year. And Timmy Frost, second runner-up Quizzer of the Year, it was Quizmaster and Beginners, and he got into sudden deaths, and neither team was beginners, and neither team was touching the buzzer, and it got to like question 30, and I just wanted to be like, Timmy, John 1-1, like, come on, man,
or John chapter 1 verse 1.
it's like write a question on John 1-1, dude.
That's
like,
right.
come on.
That's right.
But it was that was the only time I've seen that, and that was in beginners. But
so yeah, I just thought that would be an interesting piece of trivia for you guys today, or rules trivia.
I like it. I
try to teach you something every year, Phil.
Thank you so much. I need to read the rule book again. I have it upstairs. We got it as part of the 2-man team package. We got a rule book, and I've been needing to read it for a year or so. So I'm gonna do that this off season. I'm gonna reread the rule book before we start the year next year. So everyone should do that if you haven't read it in a little while. Refamiliarize yourself. So okay, segue. Finally, we get to talk about next year. We didn't even talk about Quizzer speeches, though.
I know. I was going to say, you're not going to mention prayer and share. That's your favorite part.
I love prayer and share. I thought it was beautiful, as always. Timmy dropped a line that was the only. Well, I need to. I'm going to talk to him about it soon on the podcast. But he said the only crosses that we will care about is the one that Jesus died on.
That was good.
That was the best line of the night, in my opinion. That was good. Great speech. Loved it. I'm biased. Only one that made me cry. Both Riley and Lane.
Feelings on Timmy, Phil.
Both Riley and Lane did great. The Quizzer from Pawpaw, Michigan. I'm sorry I don't know his name, but such a great speaker. Very very charismatic. Not in his religion, but in his speaking. He was very just great speaker. Really enjoyed his speech. Anybody's speeches that really stood out to you guys? Emma did great. Loved her speech.
I definitely cried during that for sure.
I get it. Chad, any stuck out to you?
I think two of my favorites. I enjoyed Karsten's, even though he did his best to run over the time limit. I did.
So my description for Carson's was bumbling and adorable. It was just
I,
like it was great.
I liked Karsten's speech. I also liked Miles Grimsley's. I enjoyed his speech very much. What he had to say,
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that. So those were. I mean, of course, a lot of the quizzers did a great job, but those were two of the ones that probably not everyone was thinking about that stood out to me in terms of ones that I enjoyed.
I
And
gotta say,
our lone Texas last year quizzer Nicholas Pitts. I'll give him a shout out. I enjoyed his speech as well. Been quizzing for a long time, and his family has stayed involved, so loved him very much.
I love that we didn't have a lot of quizzers getting up there and commenting on how nervous they were or how big the room was or how many people there were. Like it felt like people really prepared their speeches. They really put thought. A lot of people showed vulnerability. They showed their personalities. They were genuine, and overall, like I thought it was just a great group of speeches. It was a great group of last year quizzers. I truly felt that way.
This is something we talked about on the preview last year, Phil, but unlike some other years, I felt like the quizzers did a really good job this year of not trying to do too much. Like, as you mentioned, it felt like they were sincere, vulnerable when they needed to be without it feeling like it was something that was forced or something that they felt like people wanted to see. It felt like they did a really good job of staying true to themselves and really talking about their quiz journey and what quizzing meant to them. It was also a bit of relief after having 45 quizzers last year. Not that that was any of their faults, but down to 25 this year. It felt like it flew by, honestly. So that was good.
Yeah, 25 to 30 is a pretty solid to get through in the time span. 45 was ridiculous.
That was a lot.
But we made it through. And there were some great speeches then too. So great job to everybody. We didn't watch the farewell quiz. I know some kids were a little sad we didn't have a typical farewell quiz. It was a little laid back. The one this year, Ryland, you're the only one that watched it. Any thoughts?
I did. In terms of the goal to make it more of a competitive quiz, which my dad did announce that that's what the quizzers wanted. I definitely do think it was more successful in that category. The only thing that could have been better was just the setting itself, which was obviously due to a last minute change. Like we were sort of working on the fly, but sort of clustering everyone in the quizzer hangout room. Definitely some noise problems at time. Not that anything absolutely insane happened, but yeah, that's probably the only knock. As for the quiz itself, definitely more unique. The only time I've ever seen a all-star or farewell quiz, the teams be drafted by quizzers themselves. It's kind of schoolyard pick. So it was interesting. It was fun. I mean, personally, I enjoyed it. So, to each their own, I suppose. But that was fun. But it didn't really matter since Riley kind of just dominated the entire thing. I think the quiz was locked on like 15 or 14. So it was, but they had seemed to have a lot of fun. My dad obviously quiz mastering it, which I'm not sure the last time that happened or if that was ever the case.
It was way better than the guy from last year.
No argument.
But it was overall not bad.
All right. Well, good on the quizzers for making it competitive, and we all kind of wanted to see a good competitive quiz in the farewell quiz and have some fun, but not too much fun. Okay, finally, we get to talk about next year. Okay. I'm excited. I am preparing to write. I haven't really started writing yet. But it's Doctrine. Doctrine's back. And last time we did Doctrine, Ryland won National Quizzer of the Year, so that's pretty cool. What did you guys like about quizzing on Doctrine?
Well, I'd first also like to say that Chad also won Quizzer of the Year over Bible Doctrine.
Over Bible, what year was that? 2000. I don't know.
I know the year. I want you to say it though, Chad.
Well,
I actually
You get
quizzed over doctrine, I think 3 times. I only missed getting to quiz over it 4 times by 1 year. Um, my last year of juniors was doctrine, which was 97. And then in 2004, 2005, they actually split doctrine into 2 parts and combined it with some study from Genesis, I think. We learned creation and we learned the flood. That was interesting, but it was very cool to get to spread that out over my last couple of years and have that cover both of those years. And obviously, we had a good couple of years, so that made it even better. Those were the 2 years I got to quiz with my brother, so lots of fond memories there in 2004 and 2005.
Okay. Well, what did you like specifically about quiz? Ryland, what did you like about quizzing on Bible doctrine?
I think the most enjoyable thing about doctrine is, at least in my case, having quizzed for a number of years up until 2019, which was Bible doctrine last, was the fact that not a large amount of the verses, but there were definitely certain portions that were familiar because I had learned them before in the past. So in that sense of me being somewhat lazy, I guess, was like, oh wow, this is easier. So as like a 17-year-old kid, I definitely enjoyed it for that reason. But also just when it comes to the actual studying, which my parents always tried to instill into me to actually, study what is actually being spoken about in the material and not just, memorizing words off of a binder. And so from that perspective, it offers, I'm not going to say more than any other study because, I'm not one part of the Bible is any better than the other. But when you're looking for a complete picture, when you're looking for something that you can teach in a Bible study, in a devotional, when you're teaching youth class and things like that, being able to learn about these different doctrinal truths that we believe in, these principles, these sort of axioms of theology, if you want to use technical terms, it's very, very beneficial. And so in my experience personally, learning over that material, I definitely remember through a lot of hard times, because that was definitely a harder year, I would say, for myself. I was able to ground myself very much so in not just the individual verses, but in the doctrine that was being taught through the certain portions of material that were selected as a part of the study. So
I am really excited to dive into doctrine. I did write on doctrine in 2019. That was my first year. I actually don't have any of those questions, which I'm kind of glad. I'm starting fresh this year with a lot of different perspectives. So I'm really excited to write. And even like you said, you'd memorized some of the verses before, but even if ones you had memorized, there's so many just familiar verses. If you've been raised in church, you've heard you've heard these verses at some point, probably multiple times in Sunday school class, right? So it's just a great study. It's it provides some different challenges as a quizzer as far as like referencing and knowing cross references are going to be plentiful because of how the topics are kind of laid out. There's a lot of similar similar themes and across verses. So it's just a different challenge, but I'm really hoping that it kicks off some new churches joining in with Bible quizzing, some new quizzers that are interested. I know at NAYC they promoted it heavily. So I think they did a great job. Really excited to see what's in store for next year. I don't even know quite what my coaching situation is yet because we've still got some stuff to talk through and try to figure out who's quizzing in my church and try to figure out what's going on. But my daughter's moving up to senior Bible quizzing. She's finally made it to the big leagues. I think she's excited. She's 11, so it's hard to tell. But she'll be getting started learning, and she was going through. And she was counting ones that she's already learned. I mean, she's quizzed since she was 4, so she's memorized quite a few already. So she kind of had the same thing, like, oh, I already know like 100 verses. So
it's
that's
also important to keep in mind that the doctrine has changed this year, as we were made aware of.
Yes, I was going to ask if anyone had taken the time to go through and see how Russ had changed the doctrine.
Actually, yes, Vincent Beardsley did. It actually, most of the changes, I think it's like 6 verses less, and most of the ones that were new were contextual. Like instead of learning like verse 5, verse 7, verse 8, now you learn 5, 6, 7, and 8 this year. So as he did a whole thorough study on it, and it was much less than it was just mostly contextual ads. Couple verses they dropped off for one reason or another, probably because we already had a bunch of verses, kind of pounding away at a topic. So overall, not that much different. Pretty much the same.
Did he put that out somewhere, Phil, or
He has
where'd
not
you
put
see
that
that?
out. This
Okay.
this was actually I should ask him to put it out. He should put it out. But he no, he gave me the rundown in the skywalk at at after the banquet at Nationals. So yeah, he did a thorough study. So I should get that from him for sure. But yeah, not too much different. If you have the material from 2019, you could probably just memorize that and you'll be mostly okay. Don't do that. Just kidding. I'm just joking. But the theme's great. Ready always. Super appropriate. And with that, I'm excited to kind of talk about our scripture dives this year. So, obviously, we didn't get to finish scripture dives last year, and that was my bad. It was very difficult to get everyone together for those podcasts, and we didn't do the last 2. So, I'm sorry for those that enjoy those. But this year we're going to be making some changes because of doctrine. So instead of having 3-4 people on a podcast to read through the scriptures and talk about them, we're going to be doing one-on-ones with different individuals, and we're going to be doing Bible studies. I'm the student, and Eric, Avery, Jonathan, other people, maybe Rylan, maybe Chad, whoever, maybe some last year quizzers from this year are going to come on. And we're going to take a topic. So, the Bible's the infallible word of God. And then we have the first subtopic. We're going to take a subtopic, and that person is going to teach me a Bible study on that topic. And we're going to, there might be shorter episodes, but it's going to be one-on-one. And my goal for this year is to encourage you to use the word that you're using this year in a Bible study setting and be able to show you guys how to teach Bible studies this year. So that's my goal for the podcast, for the scripture dives this year. Help you understand the material, but also showing you how you can use this word that you're putting in your heart and use it to minister and to reach people. So that's my goal this year. We're going to go for it. We're going to see how it goes. So it's going to look a little different, but I'm really looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, and I want to encourage the quizzers that are coming into next year, really even more so than any other study. This is stuff that's going to stick with you, and I'm sure that in part it's because of the familiarity with a lot of it that we have coming into it versus that we've heard more often, certainly. But this is stuff that, especially if you put in the time and you do it right, this is stuff that's not going to leave you. I mean, I was looking through the study guide on my way home, and just flipping through the first couple of pages. I mean, just by reference, I could still quote 80+% of the verses, and most of the others, didn't have it pinned to the reference, but once I saw what verse it was, I could quote it from there. So this is, like I said, and Rylan said, I don't want to say that one study is better than the other, but just in terms of sort of a synopsis of, this is what we believe, and this is why. This is the stuff that's going to stick with you, and this is why they make an effort to do this study at least once during your quizzing career. That's why it's in the 7-year rotation, because we want quizzers to get exposed to this at least once. And again, some of these verses they'll see multiple times through other studies and that kind of thing. But especially grouped together as it is, it's such a good reminder of, this is not just taking one verse out of context. This is not picking one scripture and building a doctrine on it. This is a series of cross references, as it were, taking the scripture from all these different points, tying them together, putting them together under this one subject heading of, the doctrine that we're built upon. And like I said, I want to encourage you that do this year right, because this is, if you do, this is not going to leave you. This is something that you're going to remember 20 years later.
It's fantastic. Thank you for that, Chad. Yeah, I was not the quizzer you were, and I still remember some of the verses I learned in 2004. A few, probably like 7. Ryland, any last words today, bud?
I think Chad answered that and closed that chapter on the next year's study rather well. I guess the only thing I would say as a honorary Floridian myself, just shouting out the Florida District. I believe it's the first time that they've won a national championship since 1972. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's been a while for the Florida District, and couldn't be happier that it's for Gainesville that I was my former team in 2020 when the year got cut short. So, was really happy for them.
Yeah.
And we saw the best quizzer we've ever seen whose name begins with the letters RYL. So that was pretty impressive.
RYL and quizzing from Gainesville, Florida in their last year.
Hey, you know what? She finished what you couldn't, what was taken away from you. Sorry, buddy.
Sorry, Ron.
I'm still mad about 2020. I know we all are, but I just, yeah. Ugh. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Let's have a great off season here. We're going to be kicking off a couple other things. I've got some things in the work for the podcast I'm really excited about. Hoping to get some scripture dives rolling soon in this Bible study format. Really excited to see what that is going to look like. And yeah, just can't wait to see you there. God bless everybody.